so much. So folks will be joining. If my colleagues can help admit them, I would be so grateful. Thank you for that. Whoever can grab them as quickly as possible. Because folks also seem to come in and go. Admittance Education, Yeşim Erez herhalde gruplarımızdan duydunuz. Hande Hoca çok anonsman koydu sağa sola. Öğrencilerimizle de paylaştık. Bizim amacımız diğer değişik ülkelerdeki eğitim stillerini ve standartları ve size sunulan, öğrencilere sunulan işte campus var mı, eğitim stili nedir, ne tarzda destek sistemleri mevcuttur bu sistemlerde onları öğrenmenizi istiyoruz ve I just want to say in English, it's important to me that Shamir hears this. So he's been kind enough to come and speak to the team as well as IECA prior. And I have been I think we all have, not to speak for everybody, but please chime in, extremely impressed with what the university has to offer. It's a wonderful institution. So check the box on that. It's close to London. I seem to think that a lot of Turkish students want to be close to the city. And it kind of fulfills this wonderful campus residential facility, and a wide array of programs available. So it kind of meets a lot of criteria. So I think they should have more students. I think if people understood them properly, they would have a lot more students. So that's why we're having this webinar. And with that, I'm going to just go quiet and turn it over to Shamir. And thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Amazing. Thank you to Admittance Education for having us. We're really excited about the opportunity to connect with parents and students as well. It's really important for us that parents equally understand the journey to studying in the university in the UK, and specifically about Royal Holloway as well, if students are interested. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that works perfectly and doesn't mess up. So if you can see my screen, you can just wave or just let me know that it shows. So that should be perfect. I think that is showing. Brilliant. Amazing. So if you see me turning my attention to my left a few times, it's just because I have multiple screens going on at the same time, but I am speaking to you directly about the university. So just a quick introduction. I'm Shamir from Royal Holloway, University of London, and I work as the international officer, particularly looking after students from Europe and South Asia, and also Turkey as well as parts of that remit of mine. So this is a mini introduction into Royal Holloway and also looking at what it is like and the process of studying in the UK. I'll also be touching on different aspects of the application process that universities look for, and really helping you understand as parents really how you can best support your student in their applications in the future. So before I continue on, one thing I would like to note is that I did also study at the university, but I will be keeping the course I studied a bit of a secret because I will drop hints here and there throughout the presentation to kind of show you what course I might have studied at the university. And right before the Q&A section, I'll ask you guys if you have any ideas of what course I could have studied at the university. So to begin with, a quick brief history, there's lots of text on screen at the moment, but a quick brief history of our journey and what we are about. So Royal Holloway really began back in the 1800s, and it was formed by social pioneers. Now these pioneers has different duties in their philanthropy, the main ones being Jane and Thomas Holloway. Thomas Holloway was a philanthropist and entrepreneur, had lots and lots of money and had no idea what to do with it. Now, he had a few ideas, but they weren't so great, according to his wife, Jane. Jane was the one who actually proposed a really amazing idea to him and his fellows who were discussing what to do with the money. And her idea was to establish one of the first institutes in the UK to give women the ability to pursue higher education and obtain degrees and diplomas. So we became one of the first institutions for women to go to higher education and be able to obtain that record of achievement. Now, later on, we were obviously recognized as Royal Holloway, according to the Queen and the royal family that were tied to our history. Hence, we're called Royal Holloway. We're University of London, which is a big collection of universities on the board across London. And we're part of that federation since 1900. Later down the line, we became co-educational. So we are proud to say we allow co-educational education on site. And we said, okay, the guys can go in and get an education as well. And then later on as well, we merged with Bedford College and Royal Holloway. And we have a rich history with the suffragette movement in terms of the feminist movements as well. And we have a rich history of expertise in specific areas surrounding the humanities, business, law, engineering, and so forth. But that's a quick synopsis of who we are. So where our location is, it's really difficult to understand. If you hear the word University of London, you think we are right next to London Bridge, or we're right next to the Shard, for example, or the London Eye. But we are actually in a really nice green area in Surrey, just on the cusp of Surrey. We are in Egham, Surrey, which is easily accessible for students. So they get the best of both worlds, as Yeshin was saying earlier, that they're able to access the big city life as well as have a nice campus environment to study in, where everything is in one place. We do have a central London-based campus, but that's more so for students pursuing master's courses in the big city. Our Egham campus, as I mentioned, is consistently voted as the most beautiful in the world, which we're lucky to say that it is absolutely correct if you do see for yourselves. But we are surrounded by Windsor and the great countryside as well. So students are able to have that more enjoyable rural side of their studies as well, and be in a safe, comfortable environment throughout their academic study. Our central London campus is, as you would know, it is right bang on in the heart of London. It's in the Bloomsbury area, and it's a wide range of facilities are available for those students. Students from the Egham campus can access those campus facilities as well, but they won't necessarily have teaching on that campus. That will be left for the Egham campus predominantly. Our students, a quick history, compared to other universities, we are not a big, massive university. We have just shy of 13,000 students on our campus across undergraduate and postgraduate courses as well. But we still are small but mighty university. But this really allows us to give the accessibility to students in terms of teaching time, teaching space, the facilities they can use, so we're not overcrowded on campus. Quick facts and figures that you'll be seeing on screen. The key ones to me are we're a top 30 UK university. That's an essential one, really a achievement for our record. But the key ones I focus on is we're the top 25% of all UK research as judged by the Excellence Framework. So those students are really getting the academic-led expertise in their fields when they're being taught. The other statistics I really love is the employability aspect. What can the student do after they've graduated? Well, 80% of our graduates go off into employment or further study, whether they pursue master's or PhD, within 15 months of graduating. That's an amazing statistic that year on year we're building for our graduates. Our study options, there's many different fancy words that we throw around, such as the foundation course, undergraduate, postgraduate. These are the various types of degrees and diplomas that students can go for. Specifically, some of the parents here today, your child might be interested in particularly going into an undergraduate course, and some of them might be going to a foundation course. It depends on their level of study and what they want to do at university. Our academic schools are a wide range. So there's 6 main academic schools that we have: the business management, humanities, law and social sciences, engineering, physical and mathematical sciences. We also have performing and digital arts, as well as life sciences and the environment. Now, it's much easier for me to tell parents and students what we don't teach than it is to tell you what we do teach, because there's a longer list of that. So the things that we don't necessarily teach are things more to do with allied health science. So what I mean by that is something such as nursing. We unfortunately don't teach nursing or midwifery. We teach engineering. However, we don't teach mechanical, chemical engineering. We do offer electronic engineering. So it's really good to understand that distinction between what there is. But any other degree course you can really think of is particularly offered by Royal Holloway. Now, moving swiftly on to studying in the UK aspects of things. The key things I'll cover quickly are why a student might consider studying in the UK, what the benefit for them would be. The first one being there is world-leading research in the UK universities. There are some academics, the best of the best in their academic fields. They're the experts on specific areas that they've specialised in throughout their journeys, and they're willing to share that knowledge with future aspiring students as well. Because quality education is all measured by strict government standards, but that doesn't shy away from our traditional and innovative teaching methods as well. In the UK, there are more shorter intensive courses. So some places in the world offer 4-year undergraduate or bachelor's degrees, but in the UK, we typically do 3-year programs for bachelor's degrees and then 1 year for master's degrees, whereas other places in the world might do 2 years or 3 years in order for a student to specialize in that field. So that shorter, more intensivity is much more useful. We also give joint honours degrees and placement opportunities as well for those students who want to further enrich their sorts of studies in their fields. But again, there are many different reasons. And when I say why study in the UK, there can be academic reasons. There can also be personal reasons. It could be family connections. It could be to do with career aspirations. It could be due to with the culture, the location. It really depends on the student and the individual. The other things, got lovely pictures of our beautiful buildings. The other things are things such as specialising from day one. So some universities might have a sort of liberal arts sort of dynamic in the first year where they study a bunch of different subjects and then later on specialise. With our degree programmes in the UK, you directly go into that field from day one and start specialising and learning about your interests. Now, there are optional study abroad years and years in industry, but this can also help in terms of looking at finances. Perhaps how long the student is going to be studying could make a better impact on how much it will cost for them to study, compared to a 4-year course, which might include tuition fees, accommodation fees, expenses. A 3-year course lessens that burden on majority of parents. There's also guaranteed opportunities to compulsory modules that students might not have access to elsewhere. And depending on the facilities they might need to use, such as laboratories or specialist equipment, a particular university will have access to that and train the students on those. So moving to how a student can apply. Now, Admittance Education will tell you all about this as well throughout their process, about how the application process looks, so it's not as scary. But a brief synopsis is something called UCAS is what the applicants will be using. This is predominantly just for UK universities. We all will use UCAS, which stands for Universities Colleges Admission Service. Now, this is a platform where all applications are submitted through and they go out to universities. So rather than applying directly to the universities like you might do in other countries, you specifically use this platform to submit those. The main reason being for this is there are thousands upon thousands and millions of applications that a university might not be able to handle in one go. So this really streamlines that process for students to be able to apply to up to 5 choices. Now, with those 5 choices, that student will have something called a personal statement that will go out to all 5 choices. So they have to really be sure about the course and the trajectory that they want to go on in the UK and what they really want to study. Now, a key thing to note is that other universities, so if you, for example, apply for Royal Holloway and apply for 4 other universities, we won't know what other universities you've applied for. Unless the student by accident mentions a university in their personal statement or somewhere, there is no other way for us to really know what other universities the applicant has applied for. So it really takes away that bias for the student and enables us really to reflect on what the application is and why they would be suitable for us and our student community. This is what the UCAS process typically looks like. This looks scary, but it's not really too bad. If the student has started to register and the application, they can start on UCAS right away. For example, right now, they can start building the application, filling in personal details, doing their research. They should understand what courses they would like to go for and what universities they can go for. They can apply for multiple courses in the same university, or they can spread out their choices, of course, across different universities. The key thing students will get stuck upon is the personal statement, where they have to write about themselves and prove why they're worthy of that course and why they would be an excellent student at that university. And all the other things are somewhat easier things that come on later down the line, depending on where the UCAS reference is coming from. But Admittance Education will be able to guide you on those aspects as well. So what is the UCAS personal statement? There are 3 key points I like to mention here for students. At this point, what the university is seeing are a bunch of numbers and letters, which are their grades. That's all we see, and we sometimes don't even see their names. We see them as a number. So we control all sorts of our biases on that element. Now, universities use this as an opportunity to find out what the student is about, who are they behind the grades. The opportunity to demonstrate skills, experiences, and thoughts. Why are they studying? Why are they choosing to study this further at a higher level? Now, universities really want to know, how does a student stand out from the crowd? There could be another student from their same area. For example, in Turkey, there could be plenty of students within the same region with exactly the same grades and exactly similar extracurricular activities. Now, the personal statement really allows them to stand out from the crowd, to be picked over the other person. So this is an opportunity for them to demonstrate why they would be selected over someone else. It also gives students a good chance to write about themselves. And they will be doing this plenty of times in the future. So they will be doing for job applications, placements, industry years abroad. So this is exactly what they should be doing now to practice writing about themselves. But I would say the personal statement is very, very short. It's about half a page or so of text that we get given, about 4,000 characters, or roughly about 400 to 500 words is all they're getting from. What should they be including in that personal statement? Now, you might have certain discussions with them about what they're writing about. Now, these are the key things that they will be covering in that personal statement in terms of academic content. The academic content could be anywhere from what they're currently studying. So if they are doing an international baccalaureate, so IB program, it could be related to the 3 higher levels that they've taken at their school, and they can dive deeper into that element. But what we're also looking for is what have they done that their teacher hasn't told them to do? So how have they gone outside of the classroom? Have they watched certain podcasts and documentaries? Have they researched a certain topic? They can even do something easy as watching a certain TED talk and doing a bit more research on that. They can also read journal articles, attend taster days and events, and free lectures and conferences that lots of universities host. They can also take part in online courses and summer schools. We also look for work experience. Now, this work experience doesn't have to be all the time relevant because some fields won't allow, for example, if a student is interested in biomedical science, I'm pretty sure that a biomedical scientist won't allow a 16 or 17-year-old to come into the laboratory and handle dangerous specimens and equipment. They'd have to be trained on that. But what's really important is what type of work experience have they been able to get? Have they shadowed anyone at work? Have they had an understanding of what they need to do in that realm? It could also be as simple as they have a part-time job in a cafe. It could be something to do with school where they are part of a sports team as the captain. It really depends on how they use that experience to show us why it's made them suitable for the course and what skills they've gained from that and how it will help them during their university studies. Now, extracurricular activities can be anything else. It could be related to music, travel, arts and theatre, sports, school leadership, volunteering, and any outside courses that they might have done of their own volition. So no one has told them to do it, but they've gone out and done it for themselves. My top tips here are really important. The personal statement has to be much more academic than extracurricular activities. So universities are much more concerned with knowing what course they're applying for and why it's relevant to their academic history. So how well have they done in their studies? What are their interests? I always suggest a 70-30 or 60-40 split. What I mean by that is 70% of the time, the student should be talking about essentially what they've studied, what they learned about, what research they've done. So all of the academic content. Then the extra 30% shows us that they're well-rounded, that they have more interest outside of academia, and that they'll be an effective member of the student community at that university and really excel on that course. They always should make everything that they write about relevant to the course itself. So some students do write about their favorite pets and their favorite foods and things like that, but universities aren't really reading into that much. They want to know about the academic content and anything else that's relevant to the course or the university study. As I said earlier, make sure that they aren't mentioning any specific university, as that will give it away that they've applied for somewhere else, and it could cause some sort of bias. But the best way for students to do this is through the ABC method. So if they are writing about specific aspects of the course, they can think about this easy, simple structure to keep them on track, which is the ABC. So A is just activity. What have they done? B is the benefit. Why did they do it? So what did they get out of this experience? And then the course bit really helps. How is this relevant to anything that they're applying for? Why have they written about this? If they're not able to complete all of these steps, that point might be a weak point about why they're studying that course. Sometimes this also denotes to students that maybe they're applying for the wrong course, and that can be really helpful for them as well in their journey to understanding what specific course they might be interested in. The usual example I use is a student applying for biology, but they accidentally apply for biomedical sciences and their actual interests are in animal biology. On biomedical sciences, we don't really teach anything about plant biology or animal biology. It's all human-based biology. So in that element, they figure out that actually they've applied for the wrong course, and they can then correct that as well. The S in this method is not a specific instruction. It's just for them to go over everything they've written. Have they been specific? Have they written numbers in there, names and titles? Or is it a statement that we can take and give to any student that we know, and they're able to use it as well? So it has to be very personal to them and specific to their work. Now for UCAS, so at this point, if they've submitted UCAS applications and everything is all lovely and great and it's all gone off, universities will take a couple of weeks to review the decisions and then get back to the students. Now the outcomes can be very different for each student, and there's three typical responses that universities will give. The first one is we offer a conditional offer. The conditional offer essentially means there's a condition of them enrolling to that course and being accepted. Now, this will depend on the grades that they get. So if they are working off predicted grades by their counsellors or supporters, they will then need to achieve those grades at the end of the year or when they get their results back. So the example I give here is of A-levels. If a student has said they are achieving a grade A, B, B, they will need to meet that condition when their final examinations are done and the results are out. Similar to IB as well, they need to get those exact points or higher levels in order to meet the conditions. This can also include subject-specific and English language requirements, which I'll be touching on in a second as well. Unconditional means that they are absolutely amazing and we want them at our university. These are very rare. These are typically reserved for students who may have taken a gap year, for example, and applied or deferred their course. So they already have their grades and qualifications. So they're not making a prediction on their grades. Unsuccessful is a nicer way of saying, unfortunately, you haven't passed to the next stage for that course. But sometimes it is a nicer way because we are able to offer an alternative. So sometimes universities can also read applications and understand from the personal statement that this applicant is not right for this course. However, everything that they've mentioned in their personal statement is suitable for a different course that we offer. And maybe that's what they're aligned to, and they've just applied to the wrong course. They can definitely get feedback from the university itself if they're really unsure why they've been rejected from that. But a key thing to note here is if unfortunately in a circumstance all 5 of their UCAS choices are unsuccessful, they do have the opportunity to go into something called UCAS Extra, where they start applying for more places at universities one at a time. Moving particularly onto students from Turkey, so that covered a little bit about UCAS and the big cycle that they typically will be facing. Students specifically from Turkey, one of the key things that at Royal Holloway we really pride ourselves on is our international community. We are home to many international students from all over the world. We have a really nice bustling community of Turkish students as well, and also students who are based in the UK with Turkish backgrounds. So that makes for a really lively and dynamic environment. And also for students who might be feeling a bit homesick, can also feel a bit more comfort in the student environment. Now, this also allows us to be able to cater to the variety of qualifications that students might be taking in Turkey, whether it is national curriculum or if it's international as well. Entry requirements, we have a specifically dedicated web page, and most universities will have this as well for their markets. In terms of Turkey, we have a specific page where all of the information for students from that country are listed and exactly what they need to do or achieve are placed on there. Taking a quick screenshot from that Turkey page, and it shows all the different types of diplomas that we offer, that we take in terms of the applications. And you can see the GPA is roughly around 75 to 80% of that as well. But similarly, we do take A-levels, international schools that offer A-levels or IB curriculums as well, or APs if they're in an American style school, and we do take those into account. But there are some students who often take a combination, or they might take just the national curriculum as well. English language entry requirements, these are very specific and they differ from each student depending on what course they're on and what the requirements are. The most famous and typical one is the IELTS examination that many students take, but we also take our Pearson's test of English. We've even taken the Duolingo qualification as well. Some students take those. Now, for example, if a student is doing the IB program, sometimes we can exempt them from the English language requirement if they are doing really well in the English components of the IB program. So some universities such as us, we might be able to waiver those English language requirements. But it really depends on what type of qualification they're doing. But equally, if they are doing a national qualification, they'll be required to take one of these Pearson's test or IELTS to be able to meet that requirement. This is also required when it comes to the visa processes. When they need to apply for a student visa, they'll be asked about their proficiency in English. And usually if the university has assessed this, this will be feasible for them to use as well. Some examples, I like to work with examples and really paint the picture. So one of the examples is psychology BSc. So psychology is a 666 at high level for IBs and minimum 34 points overall. Now, I've also listed the national qualifications in Turkey as well, just in case some students are taking those. That's easily found on our website, where you're able to scroll down to the entry requirements and just put in the country name, and it will show you the equivalents that we're looking for from that region. So here you can see we're asking for a 75% overall from the final 2 years in the diploma, and it all varies throughout. There's also grade 80% in a specific subject. Now, some courses have specific preferred subjects that the student should be taking or should be doing really well in order to be considered for entry on that program. Now, for psychology, we call them preferred subjects. They don't have to have them as essential subjects, but they are preferred subjects. So some of these are biology, human biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, statistics. We also then go down, and in the same box on the page, you can see what is the English language requirement. So we'll show you exactly what type of English language requirements are there for that course. So it could be IELTS, Trinity College, London Integrated Skills, it could be Cambridge English, for example, and it gives you the grades that we require for that particular course. Similarly to law's a bit more simpler in terms of there's no preferred subjects. I always suggest students take at least one essay-based subject to showcase how well they can write and read and comprehend lots of literature. That course is 665, one less point than the psychology one as well. But again, you can see the variations in there as well. But the national curriculum typically stays the same around that mark. But then the IELTS scores are much more different as well sometimes. And business and management, which is a very popular one for students from Turkey as well. 655 at high level with 32 points overall. And you can see that it says there 70% in their national diplomas compared to the other two, which say 75. So it can vary quite a bit, which is really important for the students to do their research about which university will accept their grades and all predicted grades as well. Now, I'm not sure if any students or parents have students who are doing postgraduate qualifications, but postgraduate applications look absolutely different from what I've mentioned earlier. Postgraduate applications are directly to the university on their website through their own individual portals, and has nothing to do with UCAS. So if you are thinking about those, they're completely different, but they might be thinking about it for later stages. And that has a similar-ish sort of process, but it's done all directly with the university rather than a separate platform of UCAS. So UCAS applications are everything to do with undergraduate, bachelor's degrees, and then postgraduate applications are directly to the university themselves. Moving on to scholarships, my favorite bit to talk about. Now, scholarships, they are very varied in terms of what we offer, and different universities offer different amounts and different types, and if they're merit-based or automatically awarded. Now, some of the examples I put here are for this year. So for students coming to us this September in a few weeks, they would have gotten for example, if they're from an EU region or they have nationality or domiciled there, they would get £1,000 reduction. If they also apply for an undergraduate course, they've got a £1,300 discount on that tuition fee as well. And we also have a postgraduate scholarship for students, £4,000. But these are just a few examples of the ones that we offer. We do have some more recent ones that we've introduced where some students can get more money off depending on which region they're from or where they hold nationality as well. We also have cash awards scholarships. So these can be merit-based. So the computer science one, which is Donald Davies, that is giving them the scholarship of extra money. So they will get £1,000 in their first year and then £500 every additional year of their studies. And that's just a scholarship for them that they don't have to pay back or anything. We also have some for English, physics, and we have a variety for extracurricular related as well. So it's really important to research whether we have merit-based scholarships, automatic awards that are tied to the nationality or domiciled country of that student, or if it's to do with extracurriculars as well, because they really varies. And some students obviously can apply for more than one. So if there are an amazing computer science student who does lots of extracurricular with music, and they do sports, and they're, for example, domiciled in Turkey and living there, they can get multiple scholarships as well. But it's really important to read whether they need to apply for these, because some of these, like the merit-based ones, have to be applied for, and you have to write another separate statement to the university about why you should be awarded that, and that will be informed by the university themselves. The other ones, such as the tuition fees, most of these are automatic. So as soon as they've applied by a certain deadline, we will assess the application and find out, okay, we know this student is from here, this is their grades, this is what they're doing, here's an automatic scholarship as well. So students should be really aware of when they need to apply for a scholarship versus when they automatically will be given one, depending on which university they're applying for. Now, moving on to the other elements of things. So this is just a quick synopsis of the main channels that a student should go to, especially if they're an international student who's moving abroad to study. We have a range of resources. My favorite resource is that little phone symbol in the corner. That is the chat to our students function. That's really key for me because lots of our students from all over the world who have come to study with us, they are on this platform called UniBuddy, which is integrated with our website. And we encourage students who are wanting to study with us or study in the UK to message these students on their application and find out what their lived experience is. Now, some students have backgrounds from a Turkish background, and some students are directly from Turkey who are on this platform, and you can find out exactly what their journey looked like and get some sort of reassurance. Students can also even, for example, when I messaged some people on this app when I was applying, I asked them, how much maths is there on my course? Is there lots of lab work in my course? Those are the type of things I asked because that was essentially what I was worried about. And that reassurance can be really nice, especially if there's any certain difficulties that the applicant went through to apply for the course or anything that they can give top tips on. That's really useful for the student as well. And also it's a really nice way for them to make friends and know that someone that they can relate to will be studying at the university when they start. So that's a really nice place. The QR code will take you to our main web pages for international students, and all the other links are easily accessible once you get to our main page. And there's a specific section for international students. Similar to what I mentioned earlier about the specific country page for Turkey, we have all sorts of pages and relevant information. Students can even book guided campus tours to come visit us in person. If they can't visit us in person, we're virtual tours as well. You can also book one-to-one meetings. So for example, for myself, I'm looking after the Turkey market and looking after all the students who are coming from there. And they can book an informal 30-minute discussion with me online to discuss any questions or queries. This is equally available to parents as well. And they can book all sorts of those things as well. And they'll find my contact information on the website. Any queries that they have, they'll come right through to us. Now, moving on to the Q&A section of the meeting. If there's anything that anyone would like me to go over or elaborate on, I'm more than happy to do so. Going to check the chat if there's any questions.
And I did indicate, if Türkçe sormak isterseniz we'll be happy to translate any questions as well.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation.
You're welcome.
I don't have any question. I just thank.
Oh, that's nice. Rima, come on, you can ask this. Get yourself off mute, show your face. Come on. This is a good question. Ask it yourself. Come on. There you go. Yes, good job.
Hi, I'm Rima, and I was just going to ask what kind of research opportunities or internship opportunities do you have?
Good job.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you're asking particularly about like placement years or part-time jobs or just everything related to that?
Well, if you can answer everything, that would be
Yep,
great.
of course.
But yeah.
Yep, of course. So in particular, it really will depend on what course you're on, first and foremost. So all those placement opportunities will look different. Majority of them will come from our careers and employability team. They will essentially have a meeting with you as well to sit down, figure out what field or career you want to go into. And then they start then putting together some ideas of companies you should approach. A lot of them, luckily, we have connections with in the industries that you want to go into. So it's easily able to connect you to a mentor, for example. They can also sit you down to figure out how to stylize a CV for your particular industry, how to ace your interviews, and also a thing called psychometric testing, which is one of the things I studied at university. Psychometric testing is a new wave of testing that some companies do to really fish out, well, who is the best of the best candidates in that area before you even get to a stage where you're doing an interview with someone face to face. So those are some things they can do. They host careers fairs as well. We're going to host a careers fair in a few weeks for our new students that are coming in to get them started on part-time jobs if they would like some, just to have a bit of extra income and get that independence and skills. Now, majority of our jobs that we have for students who just want a bit of extra cash and save and learn independence is all on campus as well. So you could be a student ambassador, you can work in our libraries, for example, our cafes and bars and stuff, but you can also work in your department. Now, it depends on your lecturer. So, for example, if a psychology lecturer is looking for someone who is able to do research with them. So if they're really good at lab report writing, doing analyses, they might put out a job advert and say, hey, I'm looking for a first year or second year psychology student who can take part in this, and you will apply for that as well. And again, you can go back to the careers team and say, hey, I want to apply for this. How can you help? Now, that's on a smaller scale of extra stuff that you want to do. There's obviously volunteering opportunities that you can do. Now, when it comes to study abroad and years in industry, those are other things that are at a higher level that you typically have to apply almost a year in advance because you're in competition with everyone. The Careers and Employability team will help you through that process as well. Once you've picked what area you want to go into, what companies, what job adverts you've seen, they will help train you up to go into those areas. Now, if you want to do a study abroad experience, that looks slightly different. It depends on the partnerships we have. We have partnerships across Americas, Canada, and other areas of Europe, Australia, for example. So it depends where you really want to study and what course you'll be doing. Sometimes it could be additive, is what I like to say. So it adds into your degree. So, for example, you do your first year, your second year, you go abroad for your third year, and you come back and finish your fourth year. Now, that third year abroad could be you go to another university that we have a partnership with abroad, and you do something completely different. And that's absolutely fine. Or you go over and you do something that's aligned with one of our courses that you're studying, and those credits are added on to your degree as well. So it really depends, and that will be printed out on your degree certificate when you graduate and gives you that leg up in the world of work. Now, it's really up to you how you go about that. The key thing I tell students is we will not be in the interview room for you because we're not allowed to, unfortunately. So we will prep you for every single thing up to that step. And then the final step is on you to really land that opportunity in the final interview. So we'll prep you for everything. Now, the connections we have are depending on the department, really. So if you're a computer science student, for example, we have lots of connections with IBM, lots of students interested in AI, so Google would be one of them. A lot of them will go into the tech industries. Biomedical scientists will go off to work in things like cancer research or exotic medicines research, for example, and those companies who specialize in that area. Electrical engineering, same thing. It might be Tesla, for example, and working in automation. It could also be students who are doing history or ancient history. They might go to work for the National Museum or work with an art curator, for example. So it really varies what students want to do. But there's also an added opportunity for you to try out something that you've never thought of before as well. So some students take that opportunity to find out if there's something different that they like as well during their studies. So does that kind of explain your question in terms of what support and what services and what placements and stuff you can get?
Yes, thank you.
Amazing.
We have one other good question coming in there. Nigardim is asking about sports teams. She's particularly interested in basketball, but how do students engage in sports at Royal Holloway?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an amazing question. So our mascot or our team, we're the home of the Bears. So you'll be glad to know it's a nice bear that we're a mascot of, really nice colors and stuff, and you'll get to see a carved bear. Our mascot is called Colossus, which is really interesting. But that is our mascot for the sports teams. Now, the teams that you can get onto will really depend on the sports clubs and societies that you join. Now, students are equally able to join as part of the Students' Union at Royal Holloway. You can just go along and just say, hey, I'm just here to play basketball. have a good time, and make some friends. And that's absolutely fine. But then if you're a student who wants to compete at a national level, for example, or compete against other universities, you will then go out to tryouts for that team. Now, there'll be tryouts for a sports team captain, for example, or as one of the players on the team. And that will be done through the society, the sports society itself. And that's all managed by Royal Holloway Students' Union. But you can equally also just be someone who just wants to watch a game. So you can just go along, bring your snacks and stuff and just sit and watch the game as well. So there's 3 different levels, I like to say. You can really engage just for a good time and a bit of exercise, or you can become competitive in that element as well. Now, if you are competing at a national level, we have had Paralympians and Olympians before at our university who competed alongside their studies. There are scholarships and different things that can be awarded to them to keep them going in terms of their sports abilities and activities, so that they can upkeep that passion alongside their studies as well. It really depends on which one you want to go for and how invested you'll be in that basketball team.
I have a quick question if there are any today. May I?
Yes, of course. Hi, Maria.
Hi, how are you? I'm working with Yeshim. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about foundation year. How do students apply, or is it when they don't have enough IB or APs? Do they apply first to the program they want and then they just kind of bump down, or can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So it can be quite confusing for students. So for foundation years, how I look at them is for 2 reasons. First reason is if they haven't met the requirements for that course, or perhaps their English requirements are lower as well, and they need that extra boost. Or it's for students who are completely changing the academic field that they want to go to. So if someone has been completely interested in, for example, computer science and robotics and stuff, and then one day decide they want to make films and go into production, that would be kind of switching an entire field. So they might have to go into a foundation year to really get up to speed with that. And it's also vice versa. Someone who's interested in fine art now wants to do electronic engineering. There will be a gap in terms of their knowledge and skills. So that foundation year will fill that gap in knowledge to be able to provide them with that prep year, essentially, for that full 3, 4, 5-year degree. So firstly, I always advise students to figure out what they're likely to get in their qualifications and then gauge for that. I always say be ambitious. So maybe apply for the course itself directly or inquire whether you'll be eligible. And usually the university itself will say, actually, you've just slightly missed out, or your qualifications aren't completely right, or the subjects are not matching up to the requirements. We would suggest you apply for a foundation year. But if students come to us directly to apply for a foundation year, they can do so of their own accord, but they'll apply through our International Study Centre, which is managed by our partner study group. So they'll go through them to do a year of prep and then automatically go on to the next year after they've passed the foundation year into the full degree. So I like to see foundation years as a prep year is what it is. Sometimes we call it year 0 or prep year. So it's really useful for them to get those skills. So those are 2 instances I would say students typically go into foundation year, whether they're not strong on their entry requirements or missed out slightly, or they're changing completely different academic fields or careers, essentially.
Perfect. And are they socially fully integrated into campus life, or?
Yes, so we're lucky to have it right next door. So it's literally on campus for us. So it connects a bridge for them. There's a little teaching space for them if they have specific English classes, if they're taking up, for example, to improve their English speaking skills and writing, they will have specific classes, but they're fully integrated into campus. They won't be put somewhere random in the UK. They're right on our Egham campus as well. So they're well integrated with the community. So when they do pass on to the full course, there's no big shock. It's just life as normal. They've moved on to the next big course easily. So yeah, they're right on campus.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, Maria.
I
Is
would
any
also
other-
like to ask another question.
Yes, of course,
Could
Rima.
you give some information about your class sizes, like a bigger size class or smaller groups?
Yep. So what I would say is it really depends on the course again, because some courses are more practical, some are more theoretical. So in my lectures, for example, when I was studying, I would have in a lecture anywhere from 150 to 200 students. And then in my seminars, I would have about 20 students. And in my workshops or tutorials, I would then have about sometimes 7 or 8. And then if I would do my lab research stuff, I would have 1 or 2 or 4 of us, depending on how big the research project was. So that really varies. For other subjects such as English, they'll have lots of students in one lecture hall, but then you go off to a seminar with 20 people, and then you have lots of independent reading to do. Now, if you're a biology student or more STEM-based student, you might be spending a lot more time in the laboratory doing your practical work. So it could be you go to a lecture for 2 hours with about 100 of you, and then you go off to your lab work where there are plenty of you in the lab space, but you're doing your independent work and research in itself. So what we like to call that is something like contact hours, depends on how many contact hours a week you have with the department. Some courses have about 20 or 25, some have 15. It depends on how much more independent learning you'll have to do. So you might be in a big lecture with lots of people, and then a small classroom with someone else, and then an even smaller lab space, for example, or other facility where you have a much more concentrated area. Now, in your third year, it gets a bit more different because third year is typically you choose a lot more optional modules. So that will really depend on how many people pick that module. We don't tend to cap our module choices. So let's say someone picked one module on criminality in the 1800s, for example, and 60 students out of 200 pick that, then there'll be 60 students in your cohort for that module. So each module will vary depending on the interest of students. I've been in modules where only 8 of us picked that module, and then another module where almost everyone picked that module because it was so interesting. So that's how it will sort of go. But in your first year, you'll be in lots of lectures to start off with to get your basis and your bearings of the degree. So you have lots of lectures and things like that. And then when you start specializing and picking your modules in second or third year, it might fluctuate a lot as well. Academics, obviously, they can't speak to all 200 students in a room, but they have drop-in hours usually after the lecture and throughout the week, where if you have any follow-up things and you want a personal one-to-one conversation or more support, you can go ahead and drop in with them or set up a meeting with them to get that help as well. Great questions, by the way, Rima.
Okay, thank you again.
You're welcome. I think this might also be a good chance if anyone wants to guess what I studied at Royal Holloway.
Our team should know. I think you told us.
I think I mentioned it to you guys. So would it be fair to ask you?
It wouldn't be, yes. We should not say anything. So let's
I think
see.
Rima's having a think. Other people are having a nice think. You can drop any hints and tips.
I think
friends for
admissions is like it requires a lot of interaction with people and understanding people. Could it be something related to that?
Maybe. It could be. That's a really big hint.
I know, but I'm trying.
Anyone want to have a guess? You can put it in the chat if you want to, or put any more questions. Please feel free to do so. Or just shout out what you think I could have studied at Royal Holloway.
While people are thinking about what you've studied, could you elaborate a little bit on the resources that you have in place to ensure student success, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good question. So some of the links I've got on the screen here are some of the resources that students can use at first point of call. So they can also find who their direct contact is initially. That would be me if they've got any specific queries about applying or any concerns and worries. We also have our visas and immigration team. So that's the international advice team. They give good advice and they're the experts on visas and immigration. So anything to do with that they might be not so familiar with or aware of. We have the scholarships team and the fees and funding team that they can reach out to for any particular opportunities that might be available to them and what scholarships that they could qualify for in the next year. We also have the careers and employability team that help them with all things careers and employability, but we equally have the wellbeing team as well. The wellbeing team offers a variety of support, whether it's pastoral care, so for students feeling homesick and a bit worried about a big change and moving away from home, there's support for that. We have counselling services. We have a GP, a medical surgery on campus, so students within 2 minutes of stepping onto campus will easily register for healthcare as well and have all their appointments there. We also have academic support, so something called CDAS. CDAS stands for the Center for Developing Academic Skills. I used that a few times to work on my numeracy skills for my course. So in that, they host free workshops for students to come in for any work that they can't figure out on their own. If they need literacy support, they're not sure how to write their reports or their essays, or if they've got a complicated analysis to complete, they can go in for support there as well, just so they can catch up to their peers and catch up on the workload as well to feel more comfortable in the environment. And we obviously have the other student services from Royal Holloway Students' Union, which we say is part of our university, but they are a separate entity. So they are a registered charity. Now, the key thing for that is because if a student has a problem with a course or with the university's decisions or actions, for example, the students' union will represent the students' rights. And that students' union will go, hey, you guys haven't marked their coursework on time, and they've been penalized for their coursework or missed out on a grade, for example. Or there might be changes to the curriculum or the program that they're not interested in that they can challenge as well. So those sort of things are what the Students' Union can help with. They can also help with financial hardships, and they can also help with all of the counselling and pastoral work as well, where the university themselves aren't involved. So the student can feel a bit more confident that they get that personalised support. And of course, as I said, we really like to employ students on campus to get part-time work. So we roughly right now employ about 1 in 7 students of our population to be employed on campus by the university as well. So there's lots of different aspects that they can get. The key thing I would tell students is always to speak up and ask for help and go and seek that help out. Sometimes students say, oh, you know, my lecturer's not been helpful. But then I ask them, do they know your first name? And do they say hi to you in the corridors? And if they don't, that's because you haven't gone to their drop-in hours and you haven't engaged with them enough. So you can't just go to a lecture and then go home and relax. If you have support needs and you need something else figured out, you should be going up to them because they are teaching you for that whole year and sometimes all 3 or 4 years, and they will end up getting to know you really well and be supportive. And that also comes in handy if students need references or academic support for further study. So I also tell students get involved and get the most out of the university environment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have we had any guesses on my degree? If not, I will spoil the surprise in 2 minutes. Some amazing questions so far, but as again, if anyone needs any follow-ups or anything, Yeshin is more than welcome to share my contact details. They're also on the website. If you want any follow-up one-to-one discussions about the university itself and the application for it, more than welcome to answer any questions. You don't have to have the meeting. You can just drop me an email really easily. But all the other support links are on the website as well for all the students. And if you forget about any entry requirements, just go onto the course page for that course, scroll down to entry requirements, and you can put in the country and it will show you the national qualification, or you can filter out for A-levels, IBs, and APs as well.
Thank you. Maria says thank you. No, this is amazing. Yeah? You have a question?
Amazing. Someone have a question? Nope, no problem. Okay, so I think it's probably time to just reveal what I studied at the university. So I actually studied, try to throw you guys off with lots of different clues. I studied psychology and I studied a master's in psychology at the university for 4 years. Very long time, but it was very fun. And I was able to specialize in applied social and forensic science. Those were my specialties and niches. But I did start off the degree wanting to be a clinical psychologist. And now I can never think about being a clinical psychologist because I realized it was not for me. So that first year is equally as useful, or the first few months, to figure out, is your expectation the reality of what you're studying? And that's absolutely fine, because in one degree itself, you'll figure out there are so many fields and how far and expanding it is in itself to figure out what you're really interested in. So by my second term, I knew exactly what direction I needed to go in and what I was really interested in about learning in. But yeah, so 4 years of lovely study here at Royal Holloway. So absolutely can answer any questions about student life as well and any other aspects not related to study.
Yes, correctly. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, I knew you guys knew. I was like, I had a feeling when you said that hint, I was like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, you mentioned it before, but no, this is lovely. So I honestly think, I think it's going to be great to have you visit some of the schools in October. I'm sure people are looking forward to this finding out more about this institution that seems to culminate all the things Turkish students are looking for. It's a win-win all around. So and so we appreciate your time, and we know it's late for you, and thank you for being with
No,
us.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
We'll have a recording. I will cut it off before the Q&A. I haven't done it, but I will cut it off and I will post it. So if anybody missed it this evening, I'm sure that we usually get very good traffic as well on a continued
Amazing.
basis. So thank you, Shamir.
Perfect.
I hope
Brilliant.
to
Thank you
see
so
you
much,
and your
everyone.
colleagues soon in a couple weeks.
Yes, in a couple of weeks. We'll see you
Yeah.
soon. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.